Hello, champions. In this video, we're going to be discussing the listing presentation as it pertains to setting the price on the house. It's called our price evaluation worksheet. There's three prices for anything you're going to sell. There's retail, wholesale, and asking. So before we get started, I just want to go through a few things. I need you to forget everything you have been taught about a comparable market analysis. Everything you think you know is wrong. So let's get that settled right now. The one thing you'll learn from me is I don't do anything like any other realtors, and that's by design. I was taught a long time ago the 180-degree theory, which means if everybody's going this way, you go this way. Every realtor that you come across that you're going to be competing against has exactly the same presentation. They find 3 sales, they find 3 active listings, and if there's some expired listings, they use that because that's what they were taught. What you don't understand is the sales don't matter. They don't matter. All right. You can use them for information. You can use them for days on the market, as long as you go in depth and make sure that you got true days on the market and not just look at the one listing. You have to go back historically and see if it was on the market before to get a true reflection of days on the market. And that's about the only value they have. I've literally negotiated thousands of contracts. If I had to guess, I'm probably closing in on 10,000 or more between listing contracts and purchase contracts and leases and everything else that you have. So when I'm giving you this presentation, this is the best of what I've got. And it is rare, very rare, that I ever lose in a listing competition. I can't even remember. There's always somebody that will pull out a lucky home run or something. But generally speaking, I walk out with the listing. So we focus in this presentation strictly on competition. Competition and a couple of other key ingredients that we're going to go through. With this video, I have emailed you the worksheets that we're going to be discussing. Okay, the first one is the price evaluation worksheet. All right, you're going to have that. The second one is showing you how I go through the price evaluation worksheet and what these things all mean. And then the third one is where the rubber hits the road and we get down to the actual pricing. Okay, so in this example, we're going to be dealing with a serious seller because they're all serious in this day and age. And like 99% of sellers, they already have a price in mind. They always say, well, you tell me, Miles, because you're the expert, but they always have a price in mind, and that price is usually full retail plus a little bit. So I want to show you how we as real estate professionals never price a listing. We always give the seller enough information for them to decide where they want to price it. I always say based on where we want to match your goals when you want to have this sold, and then we design a marketing plan around that. Okay, so if they have 60 days or 6 months, different marketing plans and different pricing strategies. So it's important to really get into the meat of the matter. I want to show you how to get them to a saleable price. I want to show you how the client and only the client is responsible for how quick the property sells. And I say that quite often in my presentation. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you're totally in charge of how quick this home sells. It's in your control. We don't talk about advertising. We don't talk about marketing. We don't talk about social media. In this part of the presentation, we focus solely on price and motivation. Okay, so let's get started. First of all, when we're looking at the price evaluation worksheet, and I do this, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, there are 3 prices for anything you're going to sell. There's retail, wholesale, and asking. And it doesn't matter what you're going to sell, your car, your house, your dog. Those are the 3 prices. So let's go through those. Retail is the highest price in perfect market conditions with a highly motivated and qualified buyer. So based on the information I've shared with you, what do you think retail price is? So that obviously at this stage in the game, we've gone through the competition. I like to use a lot of paper. I'm old school. You can do it from your laptop or whatever you want. But I go through the competition and we take a hard look at pictures, we take a hard look at the data, days on the market, price reductions, any information that we can gain, obviously location. You know what to look for. Okay, and you give them all that information, and that information you've already prepared, because this is generally your second stop. It's not your first stop. It can be your first stop, and once you get really comfortable with the presentation, you can use it anywhere, anytime, in any market, in any city in North America, any city that has a free enterprise real estate market, Australia, doesn't matter. Okay, so once we've shared that information, they're going to see a range developing. And if they want a range from me, I don't have a problem giving them a range, because my range is, we're gonna for demonstration purposes, we're gonna use $400,000 as retail. Okay, so so I would say something like, if I was getting pressed, and I know what the target market's going to be close to 400, I would say, hey, we're probably looking somewhere between 370, 375 to 410, 415. So somewhere in that range. But what we need to do is bring that range down to a saleable price that matches your goals. So we'll put in 400 as retail. And you know what, Mr. and Mrs. Seller? See, 400 is retail. Okay, so we have retail up here of 400. All right, so if you're following along, you can even write that in this worksheet, and maybe I'll use that for this demonstration. So 400 is retail, and I always say to them, you know what, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I can get you $400,000. I can. It's absolutely no problem at all. Okay, so let's take a look at wholesale. We know what retail is. Retail is $400,000. Highest price we can get in a good market with a qualified buyer. So wholesale then is what an investor would pay. Let's say you just won the lottery. Let's say you won $64 million and you phone me up and you say, hey, Miles, I want my house sold. I'm moving to Hawaii. If you can sell it tomorrow or in the next week, I'd be a happy camper. And as we know, there's always a buyer at wholesale. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, wholesale is 75 cents on the dollar. So if we take 400, take off basic, well, we'd be taking off 100,000 at 25%, 40, 80, 20. So we write down at the bottom, wholesale of 300,000, just like that. Okay, wholesale $300,000, and the first thing you say is, hey, would you take $300,000? And if they say yes, buy it. If they say yes, get an offer on it. I'll buy it. Okay, and this is literally what I say. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, at $400,000, and I take my sheet out and I point to it, there's one buyer, okay? There's one buyer out there that will pay $400,000, and I'll find them. You give me enough time and I'll find them. At $300,000 at wholesale, there's a whole bunch of buyers. Your neighbor will buy it. You don't even need me at $300,000. You put a sign up for sale, say, hey, house worth $400,000, willing to take $300,000, and they'll beat a path to your door. So how do we get to, so if we go back to our main sheet, and we know that wholesale is $300,000, and you know what they're going to say? They're going to say, no, we're not going to take $300,000. Nobody says they're going to take $300,000. If they do, you know what to do. Buy it. Okay, so asking is determined by two things. All right, and in your worksheet, this is where, what you see in the blue type here, I actually write in. So on my worksheet that I use, I say it is determined by two things, T and C. And what does that mean? Well, that means time and competition. So I need you to ask this question. When do you want the money? What is your drop dead date? Okay, so here we have time and competition. Here we have drop dead date. All right, you see that? Time and competition, drop dead date. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, when do you need to check? And shut up. And they're going to give you a date. And that date is probably going to be a lot quicker than what they actually realize. So they could say today is it's the end of January now. Let's say they say, I'd like my money by the end of March. That's a reasonable period of time, 60 days. And so you go, okay, so, and I write right down here, your drop dead date is March 30th. Right? DDD, drop dead date, March 30th. So, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you understand that in order for you to have the money March 30th, that means I have to have it sold by the end of February because it takes 30 days to close. So you're asking me to get you full retail at $400,000, and you're asking me to sell it in record time because it only gives us a month on the market. So I want to show you what happens. I'm going to reverse the triangle, okay? So that's, and I literally do this. I draw that on there, which is in your second sheet like this, okay? And so I like to work on paper right in front of them. So I say, okay, so if you give me enough time, this represents time. You give me enough time, I can get you the $400,000. All right? If time becomes an issue, you're always in control of how fast the house is going to sell. If time becomes an issue, we know the closer you get to wholesale, and wholesale down here is $300,000. So we know the closer you get to wholesale of $300,000, the faster it's going to sell. So I need to ask you again, is March 30th your true drop dead date? And the answer doesn't matter. If they want to list it at $400,000, list it. Just say, you know what? There's one buyer out there. It might take me a year, so I'll have to get a longer listing because I'll sell it for $400,000. I really will, but you got to give me time to work with. So you're in control. You're in control. How fast do you want it sold? Well, we could probably wait till April 30th. Okay, it gives me 60 days. All right, give me 60 days to market the property. That's a reasonable period of time. That should be doable. So based on your time frame, your drop dead date of April 30th or March 30th or whatever it is, and based on the competition, and we looked at the competition, really there's one or two houses competing with us. The big thing is what is the market going to be doing in 2021? And quite frankly, nobody knows that. We're coming out of a record year, especially given COVID. 2021 is an unknown. We know Lethbridge is stable. We know that the vaccines will slowly be rolling out, but it's going to be months and months before we get vaccinated. So it is a bit of an unknown. So it's really important to focus on the competition to see where they're at, how much time they've been on the market, and how we stack up. We review all the pictures, all of the data, and then I turn around and say to them, where do you want to price it? And they're going to say, well, I don't know, Miles, what do you think? I just say, you know what? I gave you my range, and we know the closer we are to retail, the longer it's going to take to sell. So you tell me to reach your goal, to have your money by a certain date, where do you want to price it? And get them to pick the price. They always do. And it doesn't matter what the price is. They say $425, I go, great, no problem. I write in the listing $425,000. Then I say, well, it's got to be at that price. It's going to have to be a 12-month listing. I write in the listing time, and I literally say, has anybody sat down and explained to you pricing on real estate in this manner? Has anybody explained to you how selling really works? It's got nothing to do with the sales. It's got everything to do with the competition. It's got everything to do with the market going forward, and it has everything to do with your time. How much time do you have? So, does that make sense? Miles, that makes sense. Great. Am I the type of realtor you want to work with? Yeah, you are. Great. Let's move on. Then you get into the key ingredients, agency relationships and the yes and no's. Sorry, the key ingredients, listed above market or listed below retail. It doesn't matter what price you list it at, unless you're if wholesale is 300, unless you're below 350, like 330, 325, then you're at retail. The answer is always no, because if the answer is yes, you would buy it. So the answer is always no. And then it goes on, list above higher commission, list with a built-in price reduction, list with a certified appraisal. All those videos are in my library that you can look at. It goes through the most important key ingredients that you need to talk to them about. And if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, you have access to all those, and you can go through them. So that's how to get a listing, how to get a price right, how to be different than anybody else in the marketplace, and how to get the fee you earn, because guess we never talked about commission at all. So if you want to quickly cover that, I will. Because they always say, if then they haven't, generally, after we get going on this, they don't even think about it anymore, right? So I bring it up and I say, hey, we haven't talked about commission yet. We need to talk about that. And they go, oh, yeah, Miles. Okay, so like, what's your commission? I say, well, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, my fee is, and I always go, depending on the property, my personal price listing is between 2.5 and 3.5. I don't like taking anything at 2% because selling is way too important, way too critical, and I think the listing agent should be paid more. And that's my style. That's how I roll. So I always say my fee is and I'll pick a number, and let's just say for argument's sake it's 3%. Okay, my fee is 3%. Now what we need to decide is, what are we going to pay the selling company? Because that's my fee. So let's take a look at what other people are paying the selling company. And I pull back those listings that are on the market, and I go right to the bottom, and I circle the 2%, the 1.5, the 3%, whatever it is. And I say, based on these examples, realtors are receiving anywhere between 1.5 and 3%. The norm is generally around 2. What fee do you want to pay? Now, I don't care what the answer is. They can say 1%. I don't care. All right. So then, okay, so 2%. Yeah, that sounds reasonable. So then the fee is 5%. Okay. Ready to move on? They go, yep. So it's getting your fee. Don't discount yourself. You're with the best real estate company. You're the best trained. You have the best support system. Earn what you're worth. If you have any questions about this or anything else on real estate and marketing, I'm your guy. Oh, I slammed the table and I dropped my light. Look at that. Hey, champions, get out there and get some listings. Ciao.